Advertising has been used to promote products in all sorts of ways, and video games are no stranger to this. But out of all the video games that were made to promote a product first and be a game second, the Coca-Cola Kid is one of the most interesting examples of this type of advertising. The Coca-Cola Kid was the mascot to Coca-Cola of Japan throughout the 90s, and even starred in his very own game for the Game Gear. This game was also included as a pack-in title for the limited edition red Coca-Cola Game Gear with red game cart to match. This game and the limited edition Game Gear were only ever released in Japan. The highest compliment I can give the Coca-Cola Kid is it tries to be something more than just blatant advertisement for Coca-Cola, and I get the impression that Aspect, the developers who created this and many other games on behalf of Sega, did try to create a good game in its own right that could also be a marketing ploy for Coca-Cola. Did this game succeed at doing both? No, but before I get to the reasons why this game fails, let's start with an insight into good 2D platformers. What is it that separates the good 2D platformers from the bad ones? Well, the good ones normally just focus on one gameplay aspect and perfect it. For example, Mario games have always had solid jumping, and Sonic ones with a sense of speed mixed into the platform action. We can't forget the Castlevania games where precision control is a must. And finally, the best example is DuckTales, where the entire game is built around using Scrooge McDuck's cane. There are plenty more examples of platformers that just focus on getting one gameplay aspect right, and then building a whole game around this feature. Which brings me to my point. The Coca-Cola Kid tries to do a bit of everything, and that's where this game ultimately fails. It does seem cool at first. Your character can slide, kick, jump, wall jump, power charge, and then with a power up also throw frisbees. So I guess you could say this game is a jack of all trades, but sadly a master of none. To fully explain why this game fails, let's do a rundown of my first time experiences on level 1, as this is the best way to explain the game's faults. The first enemy I encountered, I bounced right off of him for some strange reason, so I thought this must be some sort of gameplay mechanic, like if you keep holding down forward it makes you defend yourself or something like that. That's not what's happening, and you soon get punished by other enemies for this mistake. But it's the game's fault for giving you this misconception, because the first level is meant to teach you how to play this game, and then it sets you up for the challenges in later levels. Okay, let's move on. The next thing I noticed was there are no indications of secret areas in the game, and unless you accidentally kick or power charge into a wall, you have no way of knowing they were even there. I wouldn't have minded this if it wasn't for the dead ends that prevented you from progressing in the levels. Normally secret areas are there to encourage you to go off the beaten path and search for hidden places that contain bonus items. Okay, so we've established that there are secret areas in the game that you need to power charge through to keep going through the levels. Let's just move on. A few moments later I found a skateboard power up, and it served no real purpose other than helping you get through the level a little quicker. But unless you know the level layouts inside and out, you're going to bump into something very quickly and then lose your new skateboard ability, which makes this power up for first time players useless. The next problem I encountered was wall jumping, and it's a nightmare to pull off correctly. Whatever you learnt about wall jumping from games like Batman or Ninja Gaiden, you might as well throw out the window. Normally with wall jumping you jump onto a wall and then stick there for a moment. This allows you the time you need to make the next wall jump. With this game I found the timing and approach needed to make successful wall jumps to be completely different, so much so that I had to use a very unusual technique to pull off successful wall jumps. What I did when I jumped onto a wall was to keep holding the D-pad in the direction of the wall I just landed on, and when I made the next jump I kept holding the D-pad in the direction of the wall I just jumped from, and then in mid-air I changed the direction of the D-pad to now face in the direction of the wall I'm now jumping to. I will admit that after a week of playing this non-stop I did get the hang of the wall jumping, but you have to admit this is a very unusual way to do it. And finally, the end boss on level 1 is pretty lame. I'm at a loss how to explain how bad he is, so I'll just show you. See what I mean? Where is the challenge? This guy is like a pushover. and the rest of the bosses aren't much more of a challenge. And that was just the first level, and I was having this many issues with the Coca-Cola kids. Okay, you can't fully judge a game just by the first level alone, but then again, if you're not having any fun on the first level, are you really going to play the rest of them to find out if the game gets any better or not? But just so this is a complete review, I did play level 5, so here are my thoughts on the rest of this game. The Coca-Cola kid himself is well animated and does show a lot of personality, and he comes across like he's had way too much cola. But this fair assumption of him does help you to believe that this character can do all these things you're seeing him doing in the game. And that might have been the reason why the developer gave him loads of abilities. That's debatable, but something that isn't is his death animation. It has to be the worst death animation I've ever seen in a video game. This is no fitting way for a mascot to die. The level designs are neither bad nor good, but what really lets them down is 3 things. First, your character is stiff to move, and the amount of times I died because of it almost drove me nuts. There is nothing wrong with stiff controls if the game is built around it. With the Coca-Cola kid, this isn't the case, and most deaths feel undeserved. Second, the hit detection is way off. It's okay when you throw a frisbee or directly powered charge into an enemy, but trying to do that kick is a pain because you have to make sure the endpoint of your kick hits your enemies, otherwise you will take damage. That means you have to be so precise when you kick, and if it's off just by a little, yep, you've just taken some damage and not even made a dent in the enemy. For some strange reason, just climbing over the edge at the same time an enemy approaches you does them damage. Explain that one. And last, the items. The items you collect are Coke bottles to replenish your health and Coke coins to buy stuff in between levels. The Coke bottles are a perfectly suitable way to regain health, but the Coke coins on the other hand, you are limited to what you can spend them on. 10 points buys you a life, 10 points buys you a continue, and 5 points buys you a frisbee. There is no point in buying an extra life because buying a continue is like buying 3 lives, which is way better value. The continues in this are not the ones that start you at the beginning of a level, nope. It's the ones that let you pick up right at the stage or end boss you are at. So why would you ever just buy a life? And talking about lives, I found the most strangest thing in this game. In the first 2 levels I couldn't find any extra lives, but in the first stage of level 3 I found 2 extra lives right next to each other. Why? Words can't express how strange this is, but I used this very unusual bit of random game design to my advantage. After I collected the 2 extra lives, I then killed myself and then recollected them again. Luckily, all the items in the levels are reset so you can pick up the same items again. If it wasn't for this, I wouldn't have been able to make it to level 5, and that was where I gave up. I got stuck in this place in level 5 and I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to get out of this maze, so I just gave up trying to complete this frustrating game. And the final cherry on top is that throughout this frustrating game there are almost no decent tunes. And the only one I kinda liked was the tune level 5, but that was about it. So, my final thoughts. I didn't expect much from this game, and I hoped this quirky little platformer would be good for a quick laugh, and I wasn't laughing, and I had very little fun with this game, so I have to give this game the thumbs down. And before I leave you, 2 last things to mention. First thing, if out of curiosity you Google the Coca-Cola kid to find out more about this mascot or the game, you might be surprised with the search results. Unless you search specifically for the Coca-Cola kid Game Gear, all you're going to get are results for this Australian film of the same name. Just to save you some time, this movie has nothing to do with this game or the mascot. It's about an American troubleshooter for Coca-Cola who tries to bring Coca-Cola to the masses down under. It's shown his age now, but it's still an entertaining movie. And last thing before I get loads of comments and private messages, yes, the next game review will be Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare. So until then, keep the lights on, drink in moderation, and I'll see you soon.